So it's been a few days since we had the first episode of Mason McAllister about the data center development going on here in North Texas and around Texas and all the way up through the Midwest to Oregon to Montana. You name it, this conversation is going on, even in upstate New York and the Northeast. So I want to take a few minutes just to go through some follow up questions that we've gotten. Um, it has certainly garnered a lot of attention as it should. This is a big deal for residents of North Texas right now. This is our home. It's where I live. It's where you live. And it's important that we are aware of what's going on because there's a lot of deals being had with or without us. Our local governments and the state government is making deals with these private data center developers with our tax dollars. And I think we need to be aware of really the long-term effects and the short-term effects, not only of the money being spent, but also the environmental impacts. I've transitioned my thought process on this from a maybe I want to learn more to a hard no, and I want to go through a couple of those details. So first is, a lot of people come in with the general question of, tell me a little bit more about what's going on. So there is a big trend towards data center development because the world of AI, crypto, transactional, internet data, all that needs to be stored and placed somewhere. So right now, there's millions of pieces of data floating around, uh, wire, Wi-Fi, anything that you can name it. In particular, AI takes a lot of data. So what's happening here is this push for data center development is not coming from the Googles and the Amazon Web Services and you name it. It's essentially private companies transitioning public dollars to private profit. So if they build a data center, it's a build and they will come scenario. So which which makes perfect sense. Which makes perfect sense. But they are targeting rural Texas, they're targeting rural Midwest because they need to be close to an ecosystem that they can exploit for power, for water, and to release pollutants into the groundwater and also into the air. The thing that we have not seen and why I have transitioned to a hard no is that there hasn't been any hard data on the need. Okay. What I want to be careful about is anybody who stands to make billions of dollars in developing a data center in my backyard does not care about the needs of that data center in 2 years. So the second point is not only the relevancy of the data center, but also how large they are. There's a word that's being used, that's being thrown around, hyperscale data center. This is 5 square miles, 10 square miles of land, 2+ million square foot building, 60, 70, 80 foot high. So you need to be aware of how big that is. The TI plant that was built, that's being built here in Sherman, just off of 75. That final plan on that building will be 4 million square feet. It's got its own ecosystem. So could you imagine driving down 902 or down 82 or up 69 and seeing a 2 and 3 million square foot building on 10 square miles? That is not a place or a building that can be repurposed in the future. So the second part is we need to understand the ecosystem and where these buildings are going. There's data that suggests that the traditional data center won't last more than 20 years. Okay. With the way AI is changing, the way AI is changing our lives in the last 6 months to a year, who knows? If Elon Musk figures out a way to process and store data in space, you're going to tell me that they're just going to come in and erase a 2 million square foot building that's got its own power system and its own water system? I don't think so. So we need to be more aware of that. That question is not being answered. The third point is the representation of these data centers. So this is private, these are private data center developers working with the public sector. So essentially, our representatives, our local commissioners, and even our governor, Greg Abbott. So they are negotiating with people they shouldn't be negotiating with, the people with that they know they can win this negotiation. And the way they're winning this negotiation and the way they're getting traction in rural Texas is because they're making promises, big promises to fix infrastructure, to not worry about water or power. They're going to build their own. And the reason that this is a challenge or something that we should certainly perk up to and maybe call BS on is because This conversation that's going on in North Texas is going on in a lot of places, and a lot of places have approved these data centers, and there is not one, and I repeat, not one case study, local representative, governor, anybody that has been involved in these conversations telling anyone else that this is a great idea. Matter of fact, they're telling you not to do them. Okay, because these promises of infrastructure growth, no pollutants, don't worry about the water, we're going to use a recirculation system. It's just simply not true. It's not happening. And then the biggest lie of all, and the one that we all need to be aware of, is the ratepayer being stuck with the water bill and with the electric. In Northern Virginia, where the highest cluster of data centers exist right now in the country, the ratepayer is paying 200 times higher than inflation in the last 10 years. So their rates, their electric rates have gone up 200% higher than inflation in the last 10 years. So somebody's picking up the bill. Staying on power for a second. To power one of these things takes exceptional amount of power. This is not something that gets plugged into the grid. So ERCOT testified recently in the Texas Oversight Committee, and they testified that based on the potential projects that are happening right now in Texas, they would need over 380,000 to 410,000 megawatts. To put that in perspective, that powers 410,000 megawatts would power over 100 million homes. So the grid, when we talk about grid reliance and we talk about plugging into a grid, you don't build a data center and then plug into a grid. You build a data center and then you essentially have to build a power substation that essentially could power part of the state. This is not just relieving the local area of power. This is, you would have to generate enough power. So if they build one in Grayson County, the substation that they would need to build would power basically from Dallas all the way up to the Red River, all the way over to Texarkana. That's how much power we need to power that one data center. So you can't tell me, and the ERCOT representative, the CEO of ERCOT, was pretty clear in that he did not know how this would be avoided to fall onto the ratepayer. Okay, so that's the other. The other part of this is water. So data lives in servers. Those servers get extremely hot and they have to be cooled on a regular basis. Okay, in the past, they've used evaporation cooling, which uses a lot of water. So the big buzzword that the developers are using right now is to say we're going to do recirculation, which is essentially water pumped through coils that wrap around these servers and keep them cool in real time. Okay, the part that they are not discussing, and if you research this, you can go on Google. You don't have to even geek out like I have and Mason did and a lot of people have. You will find that there's particulate matter and forever chemicals in those coolants. They have antifreezes, they have coatings, they have substantial amount of forever chemicals. So that has to be flushed. This is not recirculation forever. This is recirculation for a few months, which prevents them from using a lot of water, but it has to be recirculated. And when we say a lot of water, we're not talking about a lot of water like Jerry Jones watering his lawn. We're talking about in Northern Virginia, where that largest cluster of data centers are, they're using over 3 billion gallons a year, 3 billion gallons a year to cool those data centers. And a lot of them are, yes, evaporation cooling. And there's some issues with that, but the same particulate matter goes into the air, comes down as rain. So they're using 3 billion gallons of water. It's going back into the aquifers, polluted. Okay, it's coming down as polluted rain. And now has one of the highest rates of rising cancer rates in the country, and premature births, everything else. There's a correlation there, folks. There's definitely a correlation there. This could be your neighbor. Water is a scarce resource here in Texas, and we're talking about using over 1 million gallons a day per data center that's going to be recirculated and then flushed into the system flushed back into the aquifers every couple weeks. Now, when you listen to these testimonies from the National Coalition of Data Center Developers at DC NGO, that's funded by the private data center developers. Okay, make sure you're clear on that for all the money. Okay, that's a fact. They are telling you that recirculation is the future because they can just recirculate the water. They can put it back into your wastewater treatment plants and it's reused and it's really no hindrance to you. There's forever chemicals in those that even your wastewater treatment plants cannot take out. Okay, so this is a big deal. Okay, so you got power and water, and now you have pollutants. mixed in. The fourth and most important part is Abbott right now is preparing billions of dollars in abatements and tax incentives for the data centers to come in. So he's already been bought and sold. And now we need to understand who else has been bought and sold. So they're going to take your tax dollars. Remember, the Constitution is a cultural document, okay? It's not a racist document. It has nothing to do with race and culture in the sense of human cultures. It has to do in the culture of freedoms, okay? You choose to live under these freedoms in this Constitution, okay? It's a we the people. The most important people in the Constitution are the people participating in those freedoms and those people defending those freedoms. That is it. Our elected officials work for us. There is no such thing as government funded. It's people funded. It's tax dollar funded. We cannot let these abatements, whether they're local abatements, state funded abatements, happen without a vote. The legislative bodies met quietly. There was no big discussion about this. The Texas Oversight Committee completely embarrassed themselves last week in front of the National Coalition of Data Center Developers and ERCOT and everybody else. And they embarrassed their constituents and the people that they represent because they asked no hard questions. So these abatements, here's the biggest con of it all. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of tax relief, meaning they're going to come in, they're going to get a tax incentive to build your tax dollar, okay? And the only thing a politician knows how to use to get a vote is to promise jobs. A $150 million tax abatement was given out for a Des Moines, Iowa data center for the promise of 30 jobs. That paperwork got signed over the promise of 30 jobs. Maybe a security guard, maybe the lawn cutting crew, maintenance crew, maybe there's a tech, maybe there's a higher paying wage job in there for somebody who knows how to monitor server stacks. Folks, we cannot let the bait be eaten. You have small businesses like ours. We have 12 jobs here. We offer 12 jobs to the community. Did we get a tax abatement? Heck no. Did we get tax relief? Heck no. Did we get a grant? Absolutely not. They laughed at us when we asked for a grant. Don't let this happen. If you recap, abatements are bad. This promise of recooling, recirculating water is bad. The power grid is undisclosed. There's absolutely no way that that amount of power and those needs don't fall in the tax pit. So here's what we need to do. Let's be really clear on this. This is what we need to do. It's the power in the people. There's a new group that's out to protect rural Texas. We need as many members as possible. You need to go to saveruraltexas.com, saveruraltexas.com. We don't need your money. We don't need anything. We just need you to sign up. We need numbers. Because the way that this gets pushed and the way we get moratoriums and the way we get our politicians empowered to ask tougher questions, regardless if Abbott endorses them or not, and the way that we get good researchers, good lawyers, and good people representing the people of rural Texas is we get the numbers. If we can get 200,000 signatures that are essentially members signed up, again, we don't need your money. We don't need anything. It's free. You just sign up, put your name down. If you want to contribute a little bit, that would be great because we want signs and decals and everything else to get the awareness. Go there. Let's get 200,000 people on board. Let's get better representation. We're not going to win this fight with picket signs and loud mouths. That's not how this works. We're going to win this fight with good people standing up for rural Texas, standing up for their land, because it doesn't stop here. We got wind. We got turbines. We got crypto. We got lithium battery plants being built, under the table deals, land being stolen. Okay, neighbors getting sick with lithium battery plant deals going down without our vote. Okay, so go to saveruraltexas.com. Make your voice heard. We're going to continue to discuss this topic. Okay, ask the questions, email me, text me, do whatever. Come into the feed store. Let's have a discussion. This is an important one, folks. Our kids matter. The Constitution matters. Our politicians are making deals without us. We need to stand up. We need to get in the way, and we need to have a smart conversation about this. It really, really matters. Rural Texas matters. Our future matters. It does not matter to a data center developer. There's plenty other places to put these. There's plenty of other discussions to be had. There's plenty of other strategies. They're not going to exploit our water and our power and our open green spaces for profit. Appreciate you all. Go to saveruraltexas.com, sign up, put your name in, and let's make a difference. Love you all. Thank you.